Hey guys, M12 Warthog Gaming here. I am back with another video, and today I am playing some more Warlords 2, more specifically another episode of Strategy Guide, as I'm going to talk you through the strategy required to conquer Beneron in Warlords 2 Rise of Demons as the High Elves. Now last time I did Men of West first because, well, they were my favorite. This is my next favorite. If you want to, I'm eventually going to get a strategy guide out for all of the races that you can play as. If you want to see me do one before the other, just let me know. I'll bump that up on the priority list on which order that I do them in. And without further ado, let's get started with this one. So, first off, we're going to skip the cutscene.
For nearly 2 centuries.
I think I showed part of it in the last video. If you want to go see it, you can go there, or go play the game yourself. Now, I am playing a hacked version of this so I can get all the gold and whatnot, so I can show you, get right to the point and show you what we need to do and how to do it and all that stuff. Now, one of the main things is that they have, the High Elves have a little bit different armor than the Men of the West. As you can see here, of course, you can upgrade shield, helmet, upgrade armor, and shield advance. Now, High Elves are different, as they don't really focus more on having unique units, like the Men of the West had, where they were the only ones that have like javelin throwers and shield men. But these ones are more or less standard units that are geared towards having resistance to magic and being proficient at it, which is why magic casters and battle mages will definitely come in handy, as they are one of the strongest units of it, as well as a few good melee units, as well as a siege unit that's different from the battering ram, as like we talked about last time. So, for starters, shield advance, if you don't know what it was from the last video, I'm going to quickly go over that. That means the swordsman charges out with the shield above their head. Of course, doing this, they walk slower, but all incoming projectiles, such as spears, throwing javelins, or from Men of the West, or not spears, that's melee, arrows, or some magic attacks that are projectile-like, can be blocked with this. Note, if you are playing as Men of the West, the Shieldman unit does not have this as a special, but it's part of the base unit, which means you do not need to buy it for it to use shield advance. And it always has it, which means you don't need to have a magic caster re-give them their special, which is an ability that some races have, that ability that you can buy for your spellcaster. There's a lot of spells, and you only have a select few out of this giant pool of spells that your magic caster can do. So that's what makes them sort of a different unit. It's not. It makes it more of a common unit than a shared unit, because they don't share the same everything, but they have some things in common. Which I want to talk about. The 3 different classifications for units are shared, common, and unique. For now, I'm just gonna buy all this stuff. Now, normally, you would buy, upgrade shield, helmet, upgrade armor. Now, unless you are battling against people who are going to be using spells and whatnot, such as demons have like magic casters and whatnot, people later game will usually have had this unit available, as each turn you take, it gets harder and harder each turn. Although if you fail a mission or fail a level, it does not mean that the game is over. Or anything like that. It allows you to retry, but it doesn't get difficult each time, more challenging and difficult each time you try. Although that does allow you to kill a bunch of people in battle, kill a bunch of people in battle and retreat, and grind out and get money that way, which is one way that you could do it. But the amount of money I have up here is not, you're not going to need that many to buy and fully upgrade your units. Now, of course, spearmen, they have the spear charge as well. They'll have the same stuff, but they'll have the spell armor, which increases their armor, but more specifically, their resistance to damage. Now, as you can see here, archers, of course, Enhanced arrows is a sort of unique ability that the high elves have, as they are more or less not focused on unique unit abilities, but more or less making abilities that their shared and common units have to make them a little bit better or give them that edge. So they're like, yeah, you could have a special unit that has, say, like, good accuracy and whatnot, and that could be like a completely different unit from their archer, but then again, they'll have an archer that has an upgrade that makes it just as accurate as that other unit. So it's more or less, they get balanced. They're balanced in terms of fighting other races, comes from the unique upgrades that their common and shared units have, rather than their unique ones, which is sort of good because I could buy upgrades for this, but it still takes the same amount of time to summon that unit compared to other units. So I mean, larger units and much more powerful units, of course, like cavalry unit is going to take longer to prepare than say an archer, but the archer has some unique upgrades on it that most other factions do not, and that is the same thing as well. So these 4 units that you start with are pretty much your shared units. Almost all factions have a spearman, a swordsman, an archer, and a halberdier. I can't pronounce that right, but those units were very effective in medieval ages, as the weapon they yielded had multi-purpose and lasted for much longer than other tools that they used, as tools had similar jobs but couldn't do the same that a halberd could do as well. Now, as you can see here, these are the first 4 that you're going to get. Now, of course, if you plan on doing any assaults early on castles, the main thing you're going to want is your siege units and whatnot. Now, don't get me wrong when I said before that so one of the main things about the high elves is that some of the strengths that they have is from the unique upgrades you can buy your shared and common units. They do have their own unique units that not many other places have, as the warlord is a common unit, as it's very similar to a unit that the undead have, but it is not called a warlord as far as I know, or maybe it is. Maybe they called it something else, because I remember it having 2 different names. Maybe it was from 2 different warlord games, as there's like 4 or 5 different warlord games. So I'm just going to buy this, as it is especially good in melee. And now it has pushback and knockback are 2 different things. Pushback is something that a lot of cavalry units have, where it can attack someone, but it also pushes them back closer to your side of the field. Knockback is where it actually knocks the guy backwards and over, and sometimes a unit can walk over them, so it can get past the unit in that lane without actually having to take it out, which is a common occurrence between certain powerful melee units, siege units, and cavalry units are a few of them that do that. Now, of course, warlords are very good in the way that they do their melee abilities, as their high armor and their melee range is exceptionally high, which is good if you want to win like melee combat, as you can knock people back as well as get them before they get other people. 9 out of 10 times, this warlord unit will get the first strike in if it's melee on melee unit. And if it has an archer behind it backing up, of course the archer is going to get maybe a hit or 2 in before you reach it. Maybe the archer is going to get enough hits in to stop it. Now, the obelisk is another thing that I want to talk about. Unlike in the last one, where I said battering rams were good to use, as they could ram a unit down and knock it back, as in knock it over and make it fall back. It could also, which is why it's good in close combat against certain melee units, but it's also good on siege units, on siege battles, and sometimes other siege units. But normally you wouldn't have a siege on siege conflict, but If anything, I would say a battering ram versus an obelisk. The battering ram's gonna win, but the obelisk and the battering ram have their own strengths and weaknesses, just like all the factions do. The obelisk here is a thing that shoots a ball of magic up into the air, like a boulder of like magic crystal, falls on an enemy. What it can also do is shoot it up into the air and fall onto a castle, and it doesn't have to be as close, get into close combat like a battering ram would. So you could have one lane being constantly under fire with obelisks, while your melee units can get in close, and while your melee units are fighting other enemy melee units in close combat, your obelisk doesn't have to worry about that, and sometimes it will fire at the castle directly, as some melee units, when they're fighting, will do damage to the castle in order to get in, and when they get in, they also get move your bar over to your opponent's side much closer and closer to victory. But the obelisk itself can attack the castle directly at a ranged distance compared to the battering ram, which constantly slams into it. Although the obelisk has a slower rate of fire, but then again, you get a rolling start upgrade for the Men of the West battering ram as well. As you can see here, there are no upgrades for it. Now, of course, the Laddermen is one of the must-haves, as that allows units to, most units to, instead of breaking a door down to get their way into a castle, they can just climb up and over. Although, don't forget that when a cavalry unit reaches the gates of a castle, they'll hop off their horse and become an infantry guy, and they'll climb up the ladder as well. Now, for some people, they just cannot climb ladders, as some of the weapons they're holding are too big or too heavy or whatnot, or like many-to-end weapons, and they can't really climb up ladders, such as magic casters. I've noticed in many siege battles tend to beat down the door and get in because for whatever reason they just cannot use the ladders. Now, of course, I'm going to add a unit. Magic Caster is one of the best things for this one, as they have many different types of spells, but like I said, the main strength of the High Elves is their ability to use magic and be resistant to it. They're just as good as using magic as they are resisting it, so magic on magic, now High Elves are going to win because they're resistant at it as well. Now I'm going to go over some of these. Now, of course, you don't need to buy spells for the Magic Caster to use, as it has a basic spell that it can use. Not as powerful as the ones that you buy, but if you have enough money to buy the unit, but not enough to buy all the spells, that's good. Now, you can't buy all the spells, and it's really unpredictable which ones they do, but as it's very powerful and unpredictable magic unit, must be upgraded with some spells, but it already starts out with a basic spell of its own. But if you wanted to only use the strongest ones, then you only buy those, because if you buy more spells, it has a wider range of spells to use, and it's less likely to use a stronger spell than, because it will see fit to do that one instead of another one. But if I buy a light ball, it would only use that and its basic attack, which means half of them will be one thing, half of them will be the other attack, but I'm going to buy all of them just so that you guys can see what they all do. Lightning Bolt is pretty easy. Teleport, and then it has a teleport forward. Teleport usually means that they'll teleport to a different lane, escaping an attacker, whereas teleport teleports you forward. So instead of having to knock over a unit to get through its path without having to kill an enemy is something that some units can do. This one does not have to knock it over, as it can teleport behind it, although it cannot turn around and attack that unit that teleported past, though, as that's just not part of the game. Telekinesis lifts an enemy into the air, slams it to the ground. Rally Re-Give makes units that can only use their special once, reuse it again, or units that you spawned in that have specials but you didn't spawn it in with its special because you didn't want to wait for the extra time, can regain that ability, and it affects all lanes or multiple lanes, I think. I've only summoned, most of the time I summon these is when I have a ready charge, because you have a wave of magic attacks coming from all 8 lanes. It can do some serious damage depending upon what your enemy is sending at you as well. Now, I'm going to buy all this. Mind Control turns an enemy against itself. One of the more expensive ones, but it is quite useful. If you have to fight the mountain trolls and they send a giant troll at you, well, imagine what that would do if all of a sudden what they least expect is that their biggest and strongest unit has just been mind controlled to turn against you. That can be a shocker for some people. Now I'm going to go back, and I'm going to add a new unit. Battle mages are good as they have awesome range. They do a lot more armor, but they do not have any upgrades for armor other than Dispel Armor, which increases their resistance to magic, but they are one of their strengths, and having a battle mage is good. Now, of course, you can have any one of these other units of your choice. I really don't think that having a mounted melee unit is good, as they are too fast, and they'll usually be ahead of the people, and many units can gang up on it, as not many of our units have a whole lot of speed to begin with. And they'd probably only be good at clearing a path to a siege castle, but then again, it pops off, becomes an infantry unit itself. And it's not always the best thing to do, but another unique unit that they have is Assassin. And it pretty much just has the standard upgrades like everything else, but does not have an upgraded shield, as it carries 2 knives instead, and quickly taking out units. It pretty much lunges at the enemy with a knife at their throat, and if it hits it, it does damage. Although it does have a good melee range, so you gotta be careful about those guys if you're fighting them. Now, I'm going to take you to a straight-up field battle against Orcs of the North, and then maybe a siege battle on the Men of the West. But first, we're going to land battle. Okay, disable tutorial. First thing you need to know. Spearmen, the blue circle. They're charge. They're ready charge. Or quick charge, I think is what it's called. No, running charge, and then there's ready charge. Running charge is the Spearman ability. Note, each unit has their own unique ability. I accidentally spawned a wave of those. As I said before, a hacked version so I could show you everything. I meant to send 1, but what I'm going to do is show you what the warlords can do. Okay. So, look at this warlord. It literally spins its thing, but when it attacks, it flings its weapon away from itself at the enemy, but in a way to where it knocks it back, where it pushes it back, and sometimes can knock it back, but more or less pushes it back rather than knocks it back. It only knocks it over when it kills it, which is kind of good, because if it's at the end of the screen and you spawn a unit right in front of it to block it, it usually pushes it off the screen, and your unit goes through, which is another thing. Now I should focus on spawning some units. Now I'm going to show you. Now, you've probably seen what most of the spells that my Magicaster does if you watched my previous video on the Magicaster that I use for Men of the West. Now I'm going to summon an Assassin, and hopefully they spawn a unit to go after it. If they do, I'm going to show you what it can do. Or I can just summon one down here. So, watch this. At the bottom, this unit right here. Okay, I guess that unit type is not the best, but I'm actually going to make it easier on myself and just do this. But as you can see there, it does 1 quick lunge and attack. It takes it out. These guys do a lot of damage and can almost one-hit kill everyone, but if they don't get the first strike in, that's the one weakness. They don't have a whole lot of health, and if they don't get the first strike in, then they lose. But it's good if you want to take out, like, if you want to do some quick damage to a very strong unit. Which is also good. Which would actually be a pretty good rivalry if you had an assassin unit go up against a warlord unit. Keep that in mind when you are raiding the, undead as the high elves. as that will become very handy. Note the monk that's wielding the bow staff that the orcs of the north have are pretty similar to your warlord, as they can push units back as well and off the screen at the end, which is another thing that can happen. Just like our warlords could do that, some of their units can do that as well. Although not so much for hammermen and King's Guard units, as those guys are exceptionally good at what they do in melee, but that is more or less unique units of the Human Alliance. But now I'm just gonna quickly end this battle. And I'm gonna show you what the possibilities are for your army.
We have overwhelmed the enemy.
As a siege unit, as a siege battle, and what the siege units can do. Now, I'm not going to talk so much about the Ladderman, as I pretty much did a whole spiel on that in the one that I did on the Men of West. Now I'm going to take on the Men of West at a castle. Okay. So first off, you want to start out, again, shield guys on archers, as they got the shield advance. I do not have shield men, which start out with that because that's not part of the base unit for it. Note, Men of West are pretty good at defense in ranged combat. They almost remind me of the high elves in this military history campaign that our club did one time. But that's like a whole nother story thingy. So pretty much you just place units to best combo them. Swordsmen with shield advance against archers, swordsmen on spearmen, hellbalers on swordsmen. It's all about that. Note, if you have a lot of guys at once, your whirler can get the job done and take out 2 or 3 guys. If they don't have a ranged cover, or if they don't have cover from ranged units that are attacking them as well. Now I'm going to summon a whole wave of obelisks. I'm going to show you what they do. As you can see here, they're firing stuff up into the air, and they land right on an enemy. The one weakness is that they can be easily taken out by ranged units, but if you keep them busy with melee units, you shouldn't have a problem. But the main thing about obelisks is that they will fling up a boulder of magic crystals into the air and strike down on the castle itself. I already got some in place doing damage directly to the castle, and I'm not even at the castle gates. But if you send enough melee units to protect them and prevent units from getting in close combat, that's fine. And usually when your obelisks are in range, they'll stop moving forward as much or at the same rate. But eventually, as you can see here in the middle, all of our units are somewhere in the middle, or the ones closest enough to hit them, and so forth. Actually gonna put another obelisk here as we ran out of one. I actually earned a ready charge, and sometimes it's not bad to actually have archers cover your obelisks, as your archers do less damage than your obelisks, but have a longer range and can shoot enemies, such as it has the higher chance of taking out that spearman with the ready charge that's running at your obelisk, maybe getting in a few hits. As well as the obelisk has a slow rate of fire, it seems like, and probably it does that. And what I mean by rate of fire is the rate at which it can hit an enemy, as it fires off very fast, but as you can see, it takes a few seconds for it to hit an enemy as it flies up in the air and then slams down on whatever it's targeting as well. So it's one of the more unique units, as it does this, as it directly arcs up, and it's more or less good at closer range out of the ranged siege units. Like the trebuchet that the Human Alliance has definitely is a little bit longer range than the obelisk, but it's very similar. As you can see, it's meant for throwing stuff at longer distances, as this one arcs more for its projectile. When it comes down right on top of them. So, of course, it's not going to be able to work as well as you think in closer ranges as well. Because they really don't have a way to defend themselves, unlike the battering ram would. Now, of course, one of the main things you need to know is that one of the main weaknesses that they have, and probably one of the hardest things I would have to say to look out for when playing as the High Elves, is that if the Human Alliance has, like, Hammermen and King's Guard units, or pretty much any of their unique melee units, they are going to do a lot of damage to your obelisks, and you need to protect them. And pretty much the same thing you need to be wary of is, like, the larger units, such as the demons and the trolls that the demons can summon and the mountain trolls can summon and whatnot. You definitely need to be watched out for those, although your spellcaster can use mind control on it, and spellcasters and your magic is your most powerful weapon that you guys hold against some of the larger units. I would rather send in maybe 1 or 2 battle mages to take down a giant demon than I would send in, like, maybe, like, the same amount in melee units, as they are just not equipped to handle it in that way. But, anyway, guys, I think I'm gonna have to end this video of the strategy guide. Hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you did, don't forget, you can, suggest which faction I will do next. I will do many factions. As a matter of fact, I'm planning on doing all of them. But if you prefer I do one before another, just let me know in the comment section down below. If you comment a suggestion, I will move that up on the priority list out of all of them. I'm doing them in a random order. But, you pretty much have the option to pick which one goes next. Don't forget, you can also send me questions that you have over Xbox Live. Just questions, not like comments and stuff. That's what the comment section is for. At M12 LRV RVSB Gaming. Do not send me voice chat messages unless you're on Xbox 360, because if it's from an Xbox One, I will not be able to get any audio from it. And I will try to reply in the next video or reply back to you. I check that daily, even on days where I don't go on my Xbox to game. I still log on to see if I have any stuff or messages in my message box and whatnot. So be sure to send me stuff there if you want to have any questions and whatnot about that as well. But yeah, I'll see you guys later. Hope you guys enjoyed watching. Bye bye.